Hello, Angela. It is so exciting to see you. And I know you're in Vegas at the moment. So that's really, really cool. So, how are you, my gorgeous lady?
I'm great. I am great. Setting boundaries and maintaining them.
Brilliant. I can't believe that it has really not been that long since we first met. And I remember you telling me that, here was this successful professional executive woman who had this real disconnect going on because you said on the inside you felt broken, tired, afraid all the time, and you were just spending your life taking care of absolutely everybody but yourself. Do you remember that? Can you tell
Absolutely.
me how you were? Describe how you were, because I want people to realize how far you've come. Describe how you were when we first met.
So when I called you, I remember saying, I'm at the end of my rope. I can't. I said, I got this new promotion, and every time I walk up those steps, I think they're gonna realize that I'm not as strong as I try to portray. And I told you, I said, they're gonna realize I'm an imposter. I don't know
Yeah,
what to do. Um, I I've worked 10 years at this agency to get to this point, to run this agency, and now I'm terrified. I'm going to say something stupid. I'm going to sabotage it somehow, is what I told you. And I
that's right.
was just frozen in fear. Um, just frozen, really.
I remember you saying you just dreaded walking up the stairs every day. And you said, this is a job that I love. This is my passion and purpose, but I'm dreading going up those stairs because I'm scared of being found out. And I remember you described it as the successful adult you was Angela. And
Right.
you had this scared little girl, Angie, inside that you were terrified was just going to sabotage everything.
Absolutely. Because in my past, she has. I mean, whether it was her negative attitude or whether it was mouthing off at someone or just showing how um, negative and angry I was on the inside, she always shows up at times like these where I've worked really hard to get something to sabotage it. So, walking up those steps, I would count them. There's 24 steps. It was like, ugh, 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 you know, because I just didn't know how to be comfortable in my skin.
Hmm.
I should feel very comfortable at this point. People looking at me go, oh, she's a successful single Black mother. She has a beautiful home she just bought, and her children are well behaved, and I have one in grad school and one a 16-year-old that I can leave by herself who doesn't ever get in any kind of trouble. Why they would look at me and think she's got it all. I didn't feel that way though. Mm-mm.
Mm. I know, and that little girl really impacted the little girl that didn't feel good enough, really impacted every area of your life. I
Right,
remember you talking about, relationships or
right,
just being taken advantage of by family or friends. So
right.
describe the impact that just that feeling of I'm not good enough. When are they going to find me out? Was
Uh,
having on all of your life when you came to me.
Well, I've had a history of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse from my mother and from other family members. So my first husband, I'm married. I remember telling you he's a sexual predator. Basically, he's had some charges. And I can remember thinking that he made me feel clean because he was so dirty. And I was
Mm.
okay with that. The problem was, of course, along with those behaviors comes some mental issues. So I married him to feel clean, but then felt abused and dirty because that's who he is. So that
Mm.
marriage ended, one child out of that. Married a second man because he gave me an identity I could relate to. I hated me. I hated Angie. So he told me, "Oh, you can be a good Muslim wife." So
Mm.
I could grab onto that. That's clean. The women are cherished and they're not allowed to go out after dark, and it's a male dominated kind of culture. So, oh, wow, finally I can be cleaned up. I can feel worthy. So I married him Well, it turns out he was an imposter. He wasn't a Muslim. I went to the mosque more than he did. So then
Mm.
here I am again, 2 children later. That's 3 children. Second marriage ruined and devastated. Moved to another city to be back with my family. Well, they have a Angie that they like to use, and
Mm.
they only have room for me in their lives. They pick me up and put me down like convenient shoes. And so I can move back here thinking, oh, well, I'm so broken from this marriage. I'm going to fall back in with my family. Well, then I fell back into old Angie, where
Mm.
they're taking my money or they're using my car, or it's always I'm in trouble or I'm stressed. I became their trash receptacle, just they just dump on me all the time. So when I
Mm.
called you, I recently moved in with my father, and I was drowning because I wanted a dad. I thought finally I'm going to get a father, a man that's going to love me and accept me. Well, guess what? He's part of the family members that dump into my spirit all the time. So
Mm.
we move in together, and he sees me as just a roommate, not a daughter. That was devastating to me. I had to grieve the loss of the fantasy I had.
Mm.
He never promised me anything besides
Mm.
that we could live together. But what I had in my mind was I was going to get my father. And who wants to be who want to be a parentless child in this world? My mother's
Yeah.
dead. She never wanted me. She never loved me. So finally, I was going to buy my dad. He's not up for that. He has no interest in being a father to me. So
Yeah.
when I talked to you and you said to me, I remember you said, how do you know he's not broken? How do you know he's just not trying to deal with all of his childhood behaviors or disappointments or all his mess? It dawned on me that he's never known how to love me. So
Mm.
why would I expect it at 46 and him at 65? So I was able to grieve that fantasy and let it go. Now I know
Mm.
exactly where to put him every day. And he and I are just good as gold now. I don't have any expectations. He's not on pins and needles. Like literally, when I walked into the room, he would brace himself because I would come with some emotional baggage. You know,
Mm.
you didn't do this or you didn't do that. And it was all about my expectation of having a daddy. But when I
Mm.
let that go, he's relaxed now. Now my boys are not saying, Mom, let's move out. You know,
Yeah.
I just had to put it somewhere. And
And
it's
it's been
it's so freeing. It's
yeah, it's been
freeing.
amazing that I mean, you really have had a dramatic transformation, and
Right.
not just with setting, as you said, setting boundaries with your dad, but you have found that the absolutely transforming you is rippled out at work, with your relationship with your children, with your father. So describe how you feel now, because what I know now is that Angie and Angela are now combined as one healthy adult woman. So describe
Right.
the difference to where you were when you first met me, broken and drowning, to
Right.
how you are now, do you think?
So Angie to me was this filthy little poor Black girl. I was disgusted by her because she had been molested and she had been poor and picked on and told that her hair was too kinky and she was too fat, all those things. I hated her. And so showing up at my job every day, Angie had a chip on her shoulder. She was
Mm.
waiting for anybody to disagree or anybody to just confrontational, you know? So what I had to do was use the parts of her that set me free as an adult. So the strength of Angie is she can be blunt and honest, but I had to learn how to deliver that, where it wasn't cruel to people. So now instead of saying, you didn't do this, I say, now explain to me why that didn't happen.
So you've taken
So
the gloves off. She took the gloves off.
now she's not confrontational because I've arrived. I don't have to fight for what I have anymore. I mean, I have a strong belief that your gifts will make room for you. Well, I'm walking in my gifts. So why am I afraid? So I started just taking the gloves off and reframing how I approached my workers. And you can see the difference in the environment. Now there's teamwork going on. Like I left them for a week. I'm new to this position. I have no fears at all that they can handle. They have access to 600 and some odd $1,000 for agency in the bank. I'm not fearful of that. But 3 months ago, I would have never felt comfortable leaving for a week. Never.
To talk you out of doing a business call when you were flat on your back in absolute agony in hospital.
Right.
because you were
I was
so
fearful.
fearful of losing control.
Right. And
And
now
you
said
in Vegas, relaxed, having fun, and it's all good.
all week long, like I took 5 days away from the office. And I have a new program manager. And the ladies that I do have, we haven't had the greatest working relationship. But because I changed and I set the tone for this is an atmosphere of trust. We all have ownership in this. If you want to succeed, take your part and do your part. Your job, my job. That's how I've approached them all. Even one of the most difficult ones who told me flat out, if you ever take over this agency, I'm not going to work for you. Now she's not leaving.
No,
because
wow.
I had to change. I had to mirror for her, okay, maybe I'm not clear about what the expectations are. And maybe I'm just way too abrasive when I ask you to do something. So let's go back to the drawing board. Let's talk about what your strengths are. And let's talk about what your job is. And how can we mend the two? And it's kind of the same thing I had to do with me. I had to melt Angie into Angela and just take good parts of her, because she is a fighter.
And what's amazing about that is you've described what so many women find really, really hard when they come to me. It's setting boundaries without being terrified of confrontation.
Right.
And
see,
taking
I was just confronting and using all of this energy to fight all the time. Like from the time I show up in anywhere, I have my boxing gloves on, And so I'm like, why am I using all of this energy? There's not even a battle yet, and I'm already post a battle. So when I realized,
how does that feel inside? What's the difference in how you feel inside then?
Calm.
Yeah,
and I can feel the warmth in my gut, where before it was like tension there and like a knot. Now it just like feels warm. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, for instance, I'm in Vegas. My girlfriend, she left last night and she was supposed to come back and bring a meal. Now, Angie would have been so angry that she didn't come back for 6 hours. But then I remembered I'm not in control of her. And if I want my meal, I can just go get it because she doesn't owe me anything. She's an adult. And that's the difference in how I'm approaching relationships. It's like, I don't have to do all the work here. I can just let it go and just take care of me as an adult. That's my only responsibility. I'm not responsible for how her feelings are. You know what I mean?
And how much do you find that by changing you and having that calmness and that strong sense of self-belief and self-worth, that you don't have to fight, you don't have to prove, you can just be calm you. How much are you noticing that instead of repelling people, that warmth is drawing good people to you?
Absolutely. Like her son, for instance, he has some issues. Well, since I have changed and I don't come off as abrasive, he doesn't want to leave my house, because he sees now that I'm not on my 23-year-old all the time with, you need to get a job. You need to get a job. Yeah. And I'm not on my 16-year-old with, take a bath. I'm saying, well, if you don't want to work, then you won't have money. And if you don't want to take a bath, then you're going to smell bad. And when you go out with your friends, they're not going to want to be around you. I'm going to let you wear that. That's what I tell them all the time now. It's a total, Vivian, when I tell you I had to be in control of every second of every minute of every day. Before I got out of the bed, I was already planning, okay, I got to take the dog out. I got to get James up. James has got to eat at this time. We got to be out of the house. It was just madness. And now that I'm letting people take care of themselves, guess what? A 23-year-old and a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old are spending 7 days by themselves. And they
Well,
got this. They got
yeah.
it.
I know you were wanting to rescue and save and fix and control, and no wonder you were drowning. I'm exhausted just listening to it.
Right. I mean, I told you that. I said, I just want to die. I can
Yeah.
remember, I'm pretty sure I said that to you. I said, Vivian, I don't see a point to get up tomorrow. What is the
Yeah.
point of this?
Yeah.
And
I
how,
remember.
I mean, I'm making more money than I've ever made.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm in a better position than I've ever been in my life. Why was I feeling like death? It's because I was trying to control for every second of every minute of every day. And it was exhausting.
I know.
It was
I
exhausting.
remember. And so I remember too that you were really skeptical that in 8 weeks I could change your life this much and get you to this place. And what did you say? I'm not sure, Vivian. I think this is a bit fluffy.
Well,
And
especially
then,
when I started taking those classes, I was like, Vivian, this just sounds like fluff, you know?
but then you very quickly had a massive breakthrough and went, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to put in the work. This works. So what was it that was the big shift for you? Then you were like the most diligent person of all.
Yeah, I think the shift for me was watching another participant because she was so kind of lost. In my opinion, probably I felt that she was a little more lost than I was, and she was older. And I was like, if this lady can give it a go, and she made the comment that she started back over in the
Mm.
in the lessons, and I thought, well, I'm gonna try what she did. I'm gonna start over from the beginning. And when I started over from the beginning without the preconceived idea, that it's not gonna work, then I was open to it, open
Mm.
to searching my heart and so searching what I wanted out of my time here on this earth. You know what I mean? And that made all the difference. It was watching somebody else get a breakthrough and then saying, well, if she can do it, why can't I? And I'm a big believer that there's nothing I can't do. It just hit
Mm.
me what my core values are. I'm not going to give up on something I haven't even given a really good try. So, and that helped me too, is when you started talking about core values, and I started realizing that if I can go back to the basic blocks, which are my core values, then I can let go of the expectation I have for other people. Because the only person I'm in charge of is me. The only person I have to keep my values straight for is me. Once I
Yeah.
did that, it's like a light bulb, and then I was able to do the lessons and actually apply them. Even I told you, like, I think I had the first still moment where there was no noise in my head. Angela
Mm.
wasn't planning. I wasn't thinking about I was in the bathtub and I was just laying there having one of those still moments. And my mind was blank. That has not happened since I was 16, I think.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
always
still.
plotting or what's next or worrying or stressed. So I can't tell you how much of just going back to the basic blocks, which is me,
Mm.
has changed my life. It really has.
It's interesting because it is so deceptively simple, but you have these dramatic mind shifts that just fundamentally change your life. And what I love about it is that because that part of it is you are part of a small group, you see the ones who put the work in get the most dramatic results. And that
Right.
encourages you to keep going. And what do you think what would be the greatest revelation or the greatest impact this working with me, do you think, has had on your life now?
Boundaries. Boundaries, because I couldn't tell where I ended and where my children began, or where I ended and where my sister began, or my dad, or my job. I was just piecing myself out to I felt like an emotional whore. I mean, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
person I meet could get some of me without doing anything to work for it. And I
Mm.
kept, and I mean, not just men, of course, men, but even down to my friend that I had to break the relationship off for 30 years. We friend 30 years. She sent her daughter to my door. And I just opened up and just immediately started giving her everything I got was nothing in return. And I realized that everybody I meet, I'm immediately trying to earn them without asking anything of them. That boundary piece was so key for me. Because when I realized, okay, Angela, you have to know that you know before you can give. Yeah. You got to know who you are. You got to work on the inside. That was like, okay, I'm just responsible for me.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you how long I've waited to find out that moment of don't plan to die. Do you know I've been planning to die since I was 7 or 8 years old? Wow. 16, I was going to die at 16. I was going to commit suicide. I had planned that. And I told you when I first called you that I didn't see any point to go on to the next day. You know, so when I could go back to the basic blocks and go back to what are your core values? What's important to you as a person? You are not your children. You are not your sister. You love them, but they owe you something in this relationship too. Then I could say to my son, you know, when you come in and out of this house and you don't give anything to help run this house, it's not okay with me. You need to start doing your part. And I told you I feared that he was going to choose his grandparents over me. Yes. Then I was like, if he does, fine. If he does, fine. Because I'm okay with me. I haven't dated since I started this program because I remember you said to me, you're not ready. And I mulled that over and I realized, remember I did the walk of shame?
I do.
And I said, yeah, that was horrible, Vivian. That was horrible to walk past this man's parents and he's basically kicking me out the next morning. And here I am, a professional woman, and he had nothing really to offer me, but I'm walking out like I'm 20 years old in college. He doesn't introduce me to them.
You felt that huge loss of dignity, I remember.
It was horrible. Like he didn't validate me to them. He just acted like he was just putting another woman out in the morning, you know? I was nothing. And then he called me the next day like it was nothing. When I realized that I wasn't ready to date, that I needed to do so much work on me, that was groundbreaking for me too. I'm still not ready to date.
I'm certain now there is no way you'd settle for anything even remotely close to that. You're only going to settle for high value men now, aren't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you approach me with the wrong words, I don't even talk to them. Like I don't, baby, honey, that if you come and approach me, you
red
have
flag,
to
red flag.
Red flags, right? Because why are you lavishing me with that baby honey sugar stuff? You know, what's my name? Did you ask me my name? Those are the kind of things now that just automatically rise up in me without me even thinking about it, you know? And I think I walk differently. Definitely.
Well, what I loved is, you know, what I get the most privilege out of is watching all of you coming in, feeling broken, feeling like you're drowning, exhausted. And you must have experienced this watching the other women. And then you start to see the energy change and the self-confidence shine out, the stillness, the calmness descend.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I see in you now.
Right. I'm not anxious. I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not worried that my friend Glenda is not having a good time here, because it's her job to have a good time. You know what I mean? Like that would have been me before. I would have gone out of my way to constantly make sure that she was having a good time.
Yeah.
If she doesn't, that's up to her. So I feel free. Beautiful. You know?
And what do you think would have happened with your life if you had not have found me in this program and done the work that you put in?
Well, I was probably going to damage my father and my relationship to the point where it could never be repaired, because I was
Yeah.
starting to say ugly things to him. Um, like,
Mm.
well, if you ever get sick, I'm going to place you in a nursing home. You threatening him because he was not giving me the validation as a daughter that I wanted, that I thought I was
Mm.
going to get. And so what I realized is it's not his job to make me feel good about our relationship. It's not.
Mm.
He's never going to do that because he doesn't see me as a child, as his
Mm.
child. It's never the relationship we've had. We're partners. So I was going to damage that relationship. I was going to do something that we couldn't come back from.
Mm.
And it was going there very quickly.
You found
And
forgiveness. Mm.
yeah, so I had to let it go. I had to put him where I needed to. Had to put that relationship where I needed to. As
Mm.
far as my son, remember I told you my 23-year-old son was in an abusive relationship.
Mm.
It was not my job to decide to end that for him, but it was my job to tell him that I'm no longer going to support that. And so when
Mm.
I said that to him, it was very hard for me to say that to him. He has a low self-esteem,
Mm.
and I know that that girl has given him the attention as a friend that he's wanted all these years. He doesn't have many friends. So for me
Mm.
to tell him, you got to let the one person go who will give you the attention that you need each day, that was hard. But
Mm.
I just told him, I said, I can no longer be a part of this. You
Mm.
came back with a black eye from visiting her. And if I continue to be a part of this, then I'm condoning somebody physically abusing you and emotionally abusing you. And I can't
Oh,
do that.
good for you. Good for you.
And it took him about a week or so, but he eventually cut her off. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
And
so
it was
glad
hard
to
for
hear
me.
that. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that because it that's all it is, isn't it? You lead by example, and when your children see you find self-love, self-worth, strong boundaries, healthy boundaries, then you become the best role model for them to break that cycle that passes down. So I'm really
Right.
proud of you for that.
And he in particular, because his grandparents are so involved, I felt very shameful with him because they're so upstanding, and educated and
Mm-hmm.
clean in my mind. So I felt like I was never good enough for him. So for
Mm.
me to turn the tables and tell him, no, you have a duty to me in this relationship. And that's for you not to put yourself in a toxic relationship where somebody is hitting on you.
Yeah,
As your mother, I can't watch that.
yeah,
It it finally put us where we needed to be, where, okay, I've got to give something to mom in this relationship. She's not going to chase me anymore. And I stopped
brilliant.
chasing him, and he's come
Yeah,
around. It's been
yeah,
hard giving out. I would tell anybody, when you decide that you're going to change, the atmosphere is going to fight you. You're going to fight
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
But everybody is going to try and put you back in that box. I can't
yes,
tell you how many times my sister has tested my boundaries since I said, you can't borrow my car or you can't borrow money. It's like she'll find
yeah,
manipulative ways to try to go there with me. Yeah.
yeah,
It's constant testing me to see if I'm going to
yeah.
uphold that boundary. It's a lot of work.
But I gave you the skills to be able to counter that. So
Absolutely.
thankfully you have. And
And
oh,
it's
that's just
not that
so
you won't
beautiful.
slip up. And I think that was important for me to hear from you all.
Yeah,
Like you said to me, and what I appreciate about being with you, Vivian, is you let me see the vulnerable parts of you. You were like, well, there are days when I fail. But then when I do, I feel it in my gut and I get back on my program.
mm,
And then I realized, okay, I'm going to slip back, but I have it in me now to come back to where I need to be, where before I didn't have those skills.
yes, yeah. Oh, that's really lovely. I was going to ask you, what has your experience of working with me been like?
So one of the reasons I chose you as a coach, and because I wanted to challenge those deep-rooted fallacies that we're taught, especially growing up, as an African American little girl. You can't trust white people. They're always out to get you. They'll never allow you to get ahead. So what I found is looking at you with your Caucasian skin and listening to you coach me, your coaching for me was no different than it was for the other women in the group. And I needed to confirm that, you know what, all white people are not out to get me. That's a fallacy. It's one of those things we're taught that is so detrimental because I manage all white women. So walking up steps was like walking up to a guillotine. You know, it's like, when is they going to fall on my neck? They're all white women. They're out to get me, which is what I've been taught. So I purposely sought your coaching because I wanted to see, does it ring true? You know, not that you personally know me or you're out to get me, but will your coaching make a difference in my life, in my culture?
Wow, that's really interesting.
It should ring true no matter what culture it is, right? If it's true.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to challenge.
I remember you really, and in the beginning, you were almost pushing me and testing me to prove myself. And when I sort of showed you, well, I don't need to prove to you because I'm not going to treat you any differently to anybody else, and I'm going to push back just as much. It was great. I loved it. It was a really, really great experience. I've enjoyed it. And I love your mantra that you came up with as well, because you were so frightened of not being perfect in these in your head, white women who are out to get your mind, that you then realized you were already successful enough. You were, or you know, actually, we then identified many white people in your life who really had mentored you and broken that, and we really busted that belief. And then tell us your mantra about now when you go up those stairs, what you're going to do. And you've got all your staff. Sorry, say it again.
I'm going to fail forward. That's I do.
Fail forwards. I love it. And now your staff say fail forwards.
They do. They all say it. We're failing forward. Yes, because every time we make a mistake, we learn more from our mistakes than we've learned by just studying, you know, the manuals and procedures of the agency. So we made some, but like right now, I'm in the middle of writing a grant. I promise you, I have rewritten it 6 times. But every time I rewrite it, I realize something new. And I also involve them in it. Like I'll call them and say, what do you think about this? Or how could we make this sound better, you know, so that we can get the amount of money we need. So it's it's been a beautiful thing to see that people really don't expect you to be perfect. They're actually more comfortable if you're vulnerable.
Yes.
I thought that vulnerability meant they were going to chop my neck, chop my head off, you know, but they're not coming after me. They're not.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I can just be me now and show up every day.
Yeah. And in fact, the only way to form really deep, healthy connections is to fail forwards, is to allow people to see your flaws and vulnerability, but to know your boundaries about seeing the red flags of those who want to use that vulnerability to hurt you.
Absolutely.
And now what I love is you're seeing the difference. So you've dropped those boxing gloves, you've dropped the guards, you're coming out, becoming warmer with your staff, they're warming to you. It's just brilliant. So well done you for putting in all that work and for trusting me. And so what would you say, Angela? I know you said to me, I really hope more African American women will take ownership and work on themselves to bust all these self-limiting beliefs. Right. What would you tell anyone who might be unsure or a bit fearful about taking my hand and coming to work with me and going through this program?
So I would say it's much like, okay, so let's say you were going to buy a home. Then when you purchase that home, your hope is that home's value is going to increase. You want equity to build on that home. And it's a building block. So when you invest in this program, it's the same concept where these basic building blocks, the basic things you're teaching, mirroring, false belief, knocking down those false beliefs, the child within, understanding that we've been conditioned to look from the outside in rather from the inside out. Those sound like small, basic things, but it's just like when you purchase that home. If you take those basic building blocks, build on it, your equity in yourself will increase. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
So when I think about the financial investment I've made, I'm building equity for me. I'm going to be way better than I am now in 2 years because I got those building blocks. I can always go back to mirroring. I can always go back to busting those false perceptions or projection. I can always go back to those basic things whenever I get in trouble. That's what I
Yes.
would for anybody. You know, sometimes you need that flashlight to shine in your face so you can just start looking at yourself. And that's what you've done for me.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's true, because now, yes, there's always going to be challenges, always in our life, but now you know exactly how to deal with them, and you'll never go back to that drowning, exhausted woman ever again.
Never, never. I'm never going back. I'm so free now that I would never, even if I feel like somebody's trying to put me back there, it's that gut feeling you talk about where
Yeah.
you're like, this doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like your intuition will rise up, and it doesn't matter who it is. It can be your children. It can be whoever. When they try to put you back in that toxic, unhealthy mindset, your gut will churn and
Yes.
you'll know that something's not right. You know,
Yes.
that's what I love now is I have a signal to let me know, okay, this doesn't feel like what Angela should be
Yeah.
aligned with, and I go back to my core beliefs then. What are my
Brilliant.
values? Who am I right now?
Because
And if it's
before you
not
would
who
have
I like,
ignored it. Before
say
you
it
would
again.
have ignored it and tried to please everyone and make them like you
People
again.
please, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before I would have become like what I told you, Glenda, I just left her at a timeshare presentation because I had to get back and do this interview with you, and this is important to me. And she was talking too much, so I walked out and left her. So she'd never been to Vegas before, but before Angela would have never done that.
Yeah.
But my boundary is I told you that I had to be back by 4:30. So I'm going to be back because I am true to my word. I do what I say I'm going to do.
Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
yeah, so that was hard for me to get on that bus and leave her. But I I warned her in 20 minutes ahead of time. But Vivian, Angela, a year ago, 4 months ago, I would have never done anything like that because I would be so terrified that she's angry with me.
Yeah. Well,
And
I'm
I'm not
so,
go ahead.
so proud of you. And I'm so thankful that you took a detour from your Vegas holiday to come and talk to me and just inspire everybody else, because it's been such a beautiful journey to watch you go from the little Angela who was Angie, who had the boxing gloves
Angie.
on, battling and sabotaging that gorgeous, successful woman that you are,
Right.
step in to just this gorgeous Angela that I'm seeing sitting before me now. So thank you for putting your trust in me. Thank you for putting all the work in. And as your beautiful mentor that we connected you back into emotionally, said, I cannot wait to see the woman you become from this point on.
Thank you, Vivian.